All right, how y'all doing?
Good.
All right. My name's Mike Taylor. I go by the Armed Fisherman or Solo Yacker on YouTube. And just to give you a little life story, since I was 8 years old, I've been fishing. I was a professional fisherman for about 2 years on the IFA kayak tour. It was part of my life. Roughly about 5, almost 6 years ago now, if you remember the Parkland incident, I saw a lot of the Moms Demand Action and the March of Our Lives spawn from that. And that was when, like, I was all about our constitutional rights, but I didn't own a gun at the time. And I was just like, I don't need a gun. I'm like, my life is pretty safe, blah, blah, blah. But then I started seeing what spawned from that about them trying to basically start to take that right away from us. They thought these 17, 16, 18-year-old kids thought they were more responsible and knew more than I did with a firearm or knew about their rights. So go out, buy a gun, look on YouTube, and I started looking on how I can carry my gun lawfully. In the state of Florida, we're not an open carry state at all, except for exceptions, like on your property, your place of business, going to a gun range, and for me, it was the fishing, hunting, and camping exception. And so I was like, all right, cool. Now I got to carry a gun and let everybody see it. And I've always seen videos of bad policing, but that wasn't in my head at the time. It was just about, how do I carry this? So one night, leave my gun in the car. I'm under a bridge, and it's about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I love fishing at this place. I've caught 40-inch, 44-inch snook. You guys, if you know what snook are. So it's a pretty massive fish in the 30-pound class. And, you know, I love fishing there. But one day, 2 guys are up on a bridge, and I don't see them. You know, I get down there, about to make my first cast, and I hear some shuffling, look back, there they are. And all I hear is, give me your money. And I'm just like, oh shit. And here I am with no gun, and I don't know what these guys are gonna do. And I'm like, all I did was take my fish pole, swung it at them. They ducked, I ran, went back to my car, and dipped out. And from that day forward, I was out open carrying, regardless of where I was. It didn't matter. If I was fishing, I didn't care what people thought, because I just ran into this experience, and I'm like, put on a GoPro, started recording it. I go to Miami, and that's I'd done probably 8 or 9 events before that. No problems. Police were there. They're like, oh, shaking hands, everything's cool. And I'm thinking the same thing's happening in Miami. I see them coming. We see 4 approaching. I'm sitting there, and I'm Facebooking live, and da-da-da. I'm like, let's see what happens. I turn over. Next thing you know, I'm looking down the barrel of 3 guns. And I'm like, oh, transport. And this is something lawful, and I'm thinking these officers know the law, you know, and that's the one thing about a lot of this is that cops they lie to you. I'm going to tell you that right now. Even if you're doing the most innocent thing, they will lie to you to try to get you to incriminate yourself. You know, I was doing nothing unlawful, but they didn't know the law. So one thing about your constitutional rights is understanding when to talk and when not to talk. Sometimes you can give them things that will definitely say, hey, I wasn't even there, but that's it. Don't say, oh, I was with this person, this person, this person. Like, just say, hey, I wasn't there. I was never in. Let them do their investigation. If they still arrest you, more than likely, once they do a really good investigation, you'll be dropped of those charges if you did nothing wrong. And that's what's happened with most of everything I've gone through, is that I've been arrested for this. I got arrested in Ball Harbor. Didn't point guns at me, but the guy got out of his car. I'm like, here we go. I'm like, what's this guy gonna do? He reaches out and he's trying to touch my button, drop my magazine, and take my guns from me. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, I have a 4th Amendment right. He's just like, yeah. Doesn't even care. He's just like, whatever. And I'm like, hey, I'm just going fishing. I'm in the law. And he acknowledges that this law is valid. They just said that I couldn't fish where I was going. Mind you, I'm not even on the property of where I'm going. I'm on the way. And that's the part about the law. The law is 790.25, Section 3, subsection 8. Or actually, let me rephrase that. It changed. It's 790.25, Section 2, subsection 8 now. Because of the concealed weapons permit, they got rid of one of the numbers and whatever. But anyway, that's the law, and I said it, he acknowledges it, I just can't fish there, I'm not there. I'm like, hey, I'll just go back to go where I can fish. No, you're under arrest. I'm like, crap. I get arrested, and then I think it took a month and a half, 2 months, they dismissed the charges. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna file a lawsuit. I start calling lawyers and like, hey, this is what happened to me. They violated my Second Amendment, my Fourth Amendment, this. It's gonna cost you, the initial startup was $5K, like $500 an hour for the first 10 hours. And then anything else after that was $500 an hour. And he's like, trust me, it's gonna take us time to research and da. He's like, it's gonna cost anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 plus. And your damages are nothing compared to what, you're going to give us 3/4 of whatever damage you get, and you're going to be left with whatever's left over. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, but I don't have that type of money to just, here you go, and then keep giving and giving in hopes that, so I was like pro se. And there was a few people that were doing pro se talks on YouTube as well. Started following some of those, and then I reached out to a couple, and then one got back to me. And he was like, hey, he's like, I can help write some of this. And he's not a lawyer, he's not a paralegal, he's nothing. He's just a guy friggin' that understands pro se. And I explained to him the same thing I would explain to you is if you know somebody that's in law, let me rephrase that. I can't do that because you know more than I do. But if you know somebody that's knowledgeable, ask questions. Try not to get legal advice, just ask questions about how you can do certain things to do a lawsuit. And that's what I did. Got the knowledge, started working with them, you write up all this stuff, and then about a year and 2 months later, I lose this lawsuit because of qualified immunity. And that's why I say cops can lie to you, and they can get away with it. That's when things started getting disheartening for me with the way our judicial system is that the police and the judicial system can say you were not guilty of everything, but when you go to say, hey, you violated X, Y, and Z, they can also say, yeah, well, he gets a pass because he's a cop. And that's why it's so important to know your rights. If you don't know your rights, they will literally walk over you, arrest you for no reason when you've done nothing wrong. And it's about protecting yourself, and for me, it was, almost got robbed, so I wanted to carry my gun. For you, you may not be with a gun. You'd be walking down the street, and because you have a green hat and a sweater, that's how simple it is. And it's like, look, I didn't do this. Do your investigation or let me go. Like, you don't have to answer their questions. Your Fifth Amendment right is another one that's so crucial is to say, hey, I'm not answering your questions. And they'll get so mad about that. When you refuse to answer whatever they want. It's like, where were you? It's like, if you're been pulled over, like, oh, where are you coming from? What were you doing? Who were you hanging out with? Is that even relevant? It's like, but those are the circumstances that lead you into something that may get you, whatever, arrested for something that you didn't do. It's like, oh, I was hanging out down at the Kappa whatever party, right? Oh, get out of the car. You've been drinking? Oh, that one little thing. I was hanging out at the Kappa house. That could get you out of the car. If you fail one of their sobriety little touch your fingers, wiggle your toes things, that's the start. There's a YouTube video where the guy blew zeros and still got arrested for a DUI. And that's why I say it's important not to talk to police.
Has there ever been a time when a police officer asked you a question, you gave him an answer, it's helped you?
Only the fishing have.
Okay.
Like, I've had them walk up and they're like, oh, how's it going? I'm like, hey, I'm doing well. How are you? Living the dream, man. Cool. And they're like, oh, I see you got some firearms. And I'm like, and this is a time in Sanford, not too far from here. 12 officers came out, and the first one came up and was like, they haven't taught you the law yet? I'm like, on my way to going fishing, and while a fishing pole is in my hand, and I'm like, and that's what I've done over the last 5 years, is that I've helped make this law more known for law enforcement. And I'm not saying it's going to give you a free pass. It could very well show up. How they react, coin flip. So the ones that I've dealt with mostly in the last, I'd say, 6 months, none or mostly all just casual, like, oh, you're out here fishing? Okay, have a good day. And they go about their day, I go about my day, no ID, no nothing. You know, and that's another thing. I'm not going to get into the fishing aspect, but your fishing license is only needed to be given to a FWC officer. There's a statute for it, it's 379.354. And in the statute it says a commissioned officer. And these officers, they will sit there and tell you, even the ones here, oh, we're commissioned officers. You are commissioned by the state of Florida, but you are not a commission by definition. And that's where you have, you know, there's definitions of all these things. You go to 790 statutes, there's definitions for all of it. You go to 379 statutes, definitions for all of it. And when you look at the definition, a commission is a Florida wildlife and fishing officer. So, you know, that's why I say they will lie to you. You know, just always be, obviously I'm not thinking anybody in here is really out there doing anything bad, but sometimes you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and by doing things, saying things, you get you in a lot more trouble. That's why I say give some, if you know, you can give little tidbits, but don't be like, don't give them a whole spiel of X, Y, Z, and you know, there's no point, because they really don't care. They're just looking for you to slip up to find a way in. And once they get probable cause, and now I'll come back to the lawsuit about that, there's probable cause, and then I found out there's arguable You're all laughing. I wasn't laughing when that was in my lawsuit, man. Why y'all laughing at me, man? Shit. No, but seriously, there's probable cause, and then there's, in the court, it's arguable probable cause, inarguable reasonable suspicion. And I was just like, I'm like, that's how and that's his qualified immunity. And that's why I say, I'm like, you could be doing everything right, and you say one wrong thing, and they like, throw the fuck out, you know? So always be careful when dealing with the police, whether it's out fishing, whether it's driving. You're driving, and they tell you to get out of the car, fuck out of the car, okay? And there's a case law about that. Don't know it. I just know they say get out of the car. It's happened to me where I get pulled over. Before my HOA was a piece of crap. My car was just littered with stickers of Second Amendment stuff. And so I get pulled over. First thing they're saying is, you have any guns in the car? I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So your HOA stopped you from displaying the Second Amendment?
Yes. If you live in an HOA, you do not have rights. I'm not joking. Whatever they say goes, period. So, you know, even the apartment complexes and things like that, if they don't like your message that you're promoting, because even after my HOA did that, I went around my whole place and I'm recording all these cars that have stickers, and you know, it wasn't so many political, it was just like, you know, bullshit stickers. I'm like, look at all these people that have stickers. Why are you singling me out? Just because of my message? And they're like, yeah, just don't like guns, you know, your Second Amendment. And I'm like, took $300 worth of stickers off my car on the last day. And if I didn't, they were going to put a boot on my car. Like, that's why I say fight for your rights. You know, there's a give and take. Like, and that's why I say HOAs, you don't have rights. Whatever they put down in their bylaws or whatever, you can only paint your house a certain color, you can only do this, you can only do that. Guess what? You got to follow it. But you don't live in an HOA. Put whatever you want, promote your message, and use your rights. But it is scary to use them. And that's what this is all about. I was scared shitless. I've had guns pointed at me 3 to 4 times, handcuffed, put in the back of a car 5, 6, 7 times, and all because lack of knowledge of law. And that's what it's about, is learn learn your rights, learn the laws, and that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'm all ears.
I have a question. Was it hard to get your guns back after they handcuffed you and all
The first 2 times they took them, no. I did get arrested for felony wiretapping, which is a very weird law. Here in Florida, if I was to record a conversation between me and you, and then I make it public, that is wiretapping. What I got arrested for was a conversation between me and a public official. I posted it after I had put in a intent to sue for the Titusville. That's, you know what that is. But I put an intent to sue. I got a letter back saying, "Oh, we didn't do anything wrong," but I had this conversation stating in the complete opposite of what he was saying. So I posted it on YouTube, and I was about to do a pro se lawsuit. This is a completely different town. I was about to do a pro se lawsuit there. Me not knowing, I'm out driving around doing content. I get an offender bender, and the lady drives off, and the cops still have me, and they're like, "Can I take that knife from you?" And I'm like, I have a little pocket knife in my pocket, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, okay, take it." He's like, "No, I see you have a holster too." He's like, "Where are the guns?" I'm like, "In the car." I'm like, "What's up?" And he's like, "What's the last 4 of your social?" And I'm like, this guy's digging deep over a fender bender. I'm like, "What is going on?" I'm like, 7276. And he's like, "Hands behind your back." And I'm like, and that's when I found out I had a warrant for wiretapping. That was a sketchy day because I had no clue. Before I got arrested, and before I go to arraignment, before you plead guilty, not guilty, no contest, whatever, they drop the charges. Titusville's going to get a lawsuit too. I'm going to try, but once again, going through what I've gone through, I want to assert my rights, but I also understand that I'm in an uphill battle, and not being a lawyer, not knowing all these laws, and not knowing all these procedures and rules, it's hard. And if you can learn anything, half the stuff I learned was on YouTube. So, but getting the guns back has never been an issue until that day. But anytime I've ever been arrested, I usually get the guns back the next day, or when I bond out, or whatever. As long as you're not a felon, you're good to go.
I believe over the summer they passed some sort of gun rights bill in Florida.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to talk about that?
It's an amazing law. It's going in the right direction. I don't think anybody here needs to pay for their rights to carry a firearm. I say the same thing about carry a firearm how you choose to carry a firearm. I don't care if you openly carry it or conceal carry it. It doesn't bother me in a way, but open carrying brings a lot more responsibility. Like even when I'm out open carrying, my head's on a swivel because I don't know if Joe Schmo behind me is a good guy or a bad guy. And they always say, "Oh, you're giving your guns up for." Well, no, I'm not. I have to be more cautious and more aware of my situations. And I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I don't walk through the middle of the hood open carrying. Most of the places I go are usually on the rivers or the beaches. So it's not like I'm walking through MLK, like I'm not walking through a bad neighborhood. If I was to walk, I can do it, but I'm not doing it. And so like I'd need more. I'd have to have like 5 people with me because I have that, that awareness. You have to be aware of your situation. And, most of the places I go are pretty safe, but it just, situation awareness, and that's the big one about open carry. But I don't care how you carry. And it's a step forward. That's what I would say about it, step forward.
Very nice.
The case that you just lost, could you appeal that anywhere?
I was actually in the appeals process. I had gone through the initial one, and they threw it out because it was called Rule 68 or 60B. And I was like, all right. And I read the rule, and it was about submitting documents in a timely manner, or something to that effect. And so I appealed it, got all those documents, or at least I thought I got all those documents that they needed. It came back to me, and that's when they kind of basically thrown it out. They were like, well, because you were tardiness the first time and you're not doing it the second time, we think that nothing would have changed even if you'd done that. And they didn't. The one thing about a lot of it was that I submitted a video for, I thought the judge was going to actually be watching the video, and I think the judge never saw the video. It was more about the oral half of it. If I'm wrong, I don't know. Sometimes they watch the videos, and usually I'm not, don't quote me on this, I think there was something that just happened where if a video is submitted, they usually have to go off the video because there's no line inside video, whether it's audio, reports. Like I said, police can lie. I've seen reports of complete just fabrications, but when you watch a video and you read the report, you're like, where did all this happen? So, but the appeal, I lost the appeal, and then I could have gone to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court only hears so many cases, and my case is probably not going to be listened to.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add something to that. With him saying the police can lie, he's not just trying to be mean to them or he's not editorializing. I have a professor that taught me criminal procedure at this school. He said police can lie, and that's a good thing. So it's accepted that police can lie to you. He's not making stuff up himself.
Yeah, and that's why I say you have to be careful. You want to if you're trying to get out of a situation that you're not guilty of, it's okay to give some. That's why I always whenever police approach me, one of the first things that I say is, I'm going fishing. If that doesn't start ringing bells in their heads, and that's what I've done over 5 years, that when I'm going fishing should be the dinner bell saying, hey, all right, you can carry it, all right, looks good. That's what you think. But no, it's always, oh, how do I know you're allowed to possess those firearms? Well, I'm not violating any laws here. 901, 151, that's the stop and frisk law here in the state of Florida. Unless you suspected of a crime, about to commit a crime, or have committed that crime, you don't have to show them anything. The cops ever walks up to you and you're just hanging out with your buddies at the bar, and like, hey, let me get your ID. Or you're involved in an incident, but you're not the one involved in the incident, and they're like, oh, well, I need to put your name on the report. This is going to be another scary fact. For 2 years, I did a records request for NCIC, FCIC, and that's a national database for warrants, if you're a felon, probation, all this. So I did this records request, and I did it 2 years in a row, and it came back 1 was 212, and the other one was 258 times. My name was ran through a database because I was openly carrying a firearm. And it doesn't go away. You could do a records with Michael Taylor. I'd give you my age, but we're not going to go there. But if you did a records request, there's things you can find about me. You just do a Google search, open carry, or Michael Taylor, open carry fishing, and you'll see articles, arrest articles. You could probably even find some of the arrests that I've had. And once you go into these databases, it's forever. It never goes away. Just like me, my imprint of the internet will never go away. But I also want you to not be in a government database because we know about that pistol breaks, right? Dude, I was shitting bricks for freaking 3 months because every gun I carried was an AR pistol. Well, and I'm talking about my AR pistol, and I'm like, ATF's gonna come and be like, I'm like, I had to take all these guns apart. I had to get rid of a few $100s worth of friggin' pistol braces, for what? Because they're violating the Second Amendment. And do I think that's the thing I want to stand on? No. But I do think the way the government's going is a place that have them and be ready. If you feel, for me, I'm 44 years old. I have more life to live, but I will also fight for the rights for others. Because not everybody's ready to go fight, but I've had so much government backlash at me that I'm like, you want them? Come get them. Well, if you want me to come to you, and I've gone to politicians, they do not like me. I promise you. I have one down in Palm Beach. I have another one that's in Broward County. Every time I've ever shown up to their doorstep, they've called the cops and they've told me to leave. because I show up because they don't want to talk to me over the phone. They don't want to talk me back on a letter that I've written them. So how else do you convey that you don't agree with what they're doing? And that's the same thing you should do. And that's the same thing we're about to go do here in a minute, is we're going to go, and there's going to be so many people out there that have so many opinions on something. And it's like, I want to hear your opinion. I believe in your First Amendment. There are things that you're saying that I may not agree with, but let's have a talk. And like, whatever happened to just being two, we can have disagreements. Not everybody can agree with everything I do in my life. You might agree with the guns, you may agree with the fishing, you may agree with, I'm a chef by trade. You know, there's so many things that we could probably be cool about, but if you're gonna throw away and discount me because of just one thing, and that's what a lot of these people that we're about to encounter, is that they're willing to just, like, oh, his opinion doesn't matter, but maybe there's a lot that he has to say that is right. You know, and that's that freedoms that we have. Freedom is scary. I'm sure, you know, this Ben Shapiro, he's got security with him. Why? Because he gets death threats and shit like that. I'm like, I've never had a death threat. Maybe it's because I got guns. But that did happen once, where a guy was like, oh, dude, come off your porch and let's talk about this. I'm like, it's 6:30 in the morning. I'm drinking coffee, and I'm like, he's Facebooking me, and I'm like, I'm looking out my parking lot. Where the motherfucker at? You know, I'm like, go in the house, grab the AR. Where you at, dude? Like, and that's, people will disagree, but to get to that point, it's like, our country has to turn around somewhere. I've seen this, like I said, I'm 44. It wasn't like this in the 90s for me. Even in the 2000s, it wasn't like this. But now it's like, whoa.
Where do you think like it all went wrong? Like, as you said, I know you said like the 2000s was like this, but like, not asking you to like pinpoint a specific thing, but just when
I don't know if it was school, because I remember when I was going through grade school, I don't know, none of y'all have ever been hit with a paddle, have you? If you've been hit with a paddle, like, we had paddles in friggin' elementary school. You went to the friggin' principal's office, it wasn't to go up there and shake his hand, it was there to get a friggin' paddle, because you were bad. You know, I've watched sex ed, same principal, they've taken that out of school, and not teaching, you know, they've taken religion. I'm not saying religion has to be in there, I'm just saying, I've watched a lot of these things happen going from, you know, when I was in my teens, completely gone, and now the teachers they're allowed to give you whatever it is they want, and without backlash. And when there is backlash, you know, we've seen the viral videos of the people showing up to the whatever school board meeting, and they're like, what is this? You're a doctor, or you're giving these books to these kids. Why? And they're like, oh, they should have access. There's a bookstore, there's Barnes and Noble down the road. If I want my daughter to read that book, I'll go buy the book. You know, go to the public library. It's in the public library. Don't bring it into my school library. And that's how I feel. That's one thing I don't really. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I don't need that. And that's the important part about what I'm trying to decide is, do I send them off? And it's the same thing with, you know, you see these school shootings. It's like, all right, they have one officer to protect 300-400 students or whatever. And I have no way to protect my daughter once she's out of my hands on that property. Same thing here. For anybody that's 21, or what it is, but I think it stems from the education half of it, is that they're not being taught something. I'm not a teacher, so I don't know what it is. I just know I see certain things and I'm like, I attribute to a lot of the schooling.
Obviously, if you infringe your Second Amendment right, you would find that as like, and not like the ways you've done, but like if they tried to take your guns and like all of them, like you would definitely want to rise up. But is there anything else that the government would do that would make you want to like have something to say about it?
Yeah, even your First Amendment right. The First Amendment, the reason those two coincide is we want to be able to express ourselves. That's why it's first and foremost your religion, your just freedoms. We want to be free. The Second Amendment just allows us to have something to go against the government to say, hey, you want to take these things from us, we will fight back. And we did it, we've done it. You know, you can look at what or from the Revolutionary War to the war here, the Civil War?
Yeah.
Our Civil War?
Yeah.
Right? The reason there were so many fights and why it got won was because of firearms, and they were fighting for freedom. They were fighting for slavery to be ended in the South. They were like, yeah, no, we don't need your help. But we were United States. We weren't going to be a divided state. And that's why I think it's so special here, is that we're getting so divided on every little issue, every single. And it's just like, how do we start getting back together? And I think it's talking, not really, it's like, yeah, it's going to probably get heated at some points, but I think trying to actually have a conversation, that's what half of this is about, is just trying to talk to people and, hey, express your rights or lose them.
Yeah, an election probably won't be enough to just do that, right?
I don't think so.
There's a lot on 2024 that won't do it.
I don't think it's going to come, I don't think it's going to come, it could come from a president, I could see that. I don't think it's going to happen now, but if things continue to go down the route they're going, and even with the gun laws that they're still trying to push, I think there's a breaking point. And right now we're not there, but they thought January 6th was a bad day, right? Trust me, man, January 6th is going to look like a cupcake meeting, because the day that you've ever heard of the shot heard around the world, that was the shot that started the Revolutionary War. And whoever the one, FBI, whoever, I have to do this for YouTube, but FBI and anybody, I'm not saying it's going to be me, I'm just saying if the government goes to a point and it breaks somebody's threshold that has a following, that are willing to fight with that guy, alongside that guy, somebody will end up doing it. And depending on who wants to break the Second Amendment to that point, if they say, oh, we're going to do a gun confiscation, gun buyback, no more guns, you probably hear that shot.
You saw it happen in New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Yeah. That governor there, what she did is, once again, it was unconstitutional what she said. And then, if you haven't known about the update, when it got to this, it wasn't Supreme Court, it got to the injunction part of it, they were like, oh, because she changed the verbiage and it was only for parks, and it was like parks and something else. 2 places. Instead of the entire state, it was just 2 places, parks and something else. And they were like, oh, that's perfectly okay. And it's like, no, it's not okay. Any infringement, and they have open carry there. And it's like, anytime that the government says, you don't need this, or we're going to take this away, that should raise your eyeballs and be like, holy cow. Especially when it concerns to constitutional rights. Like, let's just say they were to say, all right, well, we get that you have the right to unreasonable searches and seizures, but you really don't need that. You know what that's going to allow? It's going to allow the cops to just walk up to you like, give me your papers. Give me your papers. That's what they did with the Jewish people. The same thing is they're like, if you weren't from there, if you were the wrong eye shade or eye color or whatever, give me your papers. You didn't produce papers. Off to the camp you went. And I'm not saying that's exactly where we're at, but that's how these law enforcement work. They work. They need your ID. They want to put you on record. They need something to attach to something. And then once you're on those records or those papers or arrest affidavits, it doesn't go away. And that's why I've been tracked. I mean, I'll tell you about this one time in Palm Beach. It was me and 8 other people the first day. We went out there, freak out. Had like 10 phone calls of people freaking out. I'm like, oh, you gotta tell them to stop, get out of here, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's legal, whatever. So after that, I was like, I'm gonna make another trip and I'm gonna announce it. And I brought 50 people, and they knew a lot of people were coming. So the Secret Service that works along with West Palm get in touch with my parents. My parents tell me that the Secret Service wants to talk to me about my upcoming event in West Palm Beach. And I'm like, how did the Secret Service get your phone number? And all it takes is, Michael Taylor. They just track down any type of arrest or anything that has my phone number, and they able to track all the way back to my parents, and that's how they got a hold of me. And that's why I say it's like, second you start giving up information and giving all your information, it's never gonna go away. I mean, even if you're not doing anything wrong, you could always, you never know, never know. You ready to do it?
Yeah.
Let's do it, man. Yeah.